In today's world, there's no shortage of bad advice floating around, often coming from people who aren't exactly the best examples to follow. One of the things the Stoics emphasized was the importance of being able to separate good advice from bad advice, just like a money changer knows how to spot a counterfeit coin. Epictetus suggested that we need to develop a sharp eye for recognizing whether the advice we receive is genuine and worthy of following. So, how do we separate the good from the bad? First, ask yourself, do I respect this person? Is this someone I admire and want to learn from? Do they truly understand what they're talking about? If everyone followed this advice, what kind of world would it create? These are the types of questions we should ask ourselves when sifting through the flood of opinions. And in this post, we're going to explore some of the worst advice out there and see how Stoic philosophy would guide us toward a better way of thinking and living. This kind of advice often sounds like it's encouraging us to be confident, but when you dig deeper, it promotes arrogance. Stoicism teaches that the biggest roadblock to true knowledge is ego. In fact, the Stoics saw conceit as one of the most detrimental traits, especially among young people, because it keeps them from learning and growing. Epictetus famously said, "It's impossible to learn what you think you already know." It's easy to confuse confidence with ego, but the two are fundamentally different. Confidence is about understanding your strengths and limitations, while ego inflates your sense of self-importance. When we're consumed by ego, we stop being open to feedback, and we close ourselves off from growth. Look at the example of someone like Marcus Aurelius, whose meditations were essentially a way for him to constantly check his own ego and remind himself to stay grounded. Despite being an emperor with immense power and influence, he fought to stay humble, reminding himself that true greatness comes not from external recognition, but from living according to wisdom, virtue, and reality. Contrast that with figures like Donald Trump, whose ego has led him through a career full of failures, scandals, and personal strife. His ego has made things more difficult for him, turning what could have been successful ventures into a series of painful missteps. Sure, he may have gained attention or even power, but at what cost? The Stoics would argue that this inflated ego is far from a path to true success. Humility, on the other hand, is a trait we should all strive for, not as a weakness, but as a foundation for continual growth. Great leaders like George Marshall, who helped guide the United States through World War II, were known for their humility. Marshall was always more focused on the mission than on his personal interests. It's this type of humility that the Stoics admired, the ability to serve others and to recognize the need for self-awareness. There's a popular notion that success is all about working yourself into the ground, about pushing through exhaustion and constantly hustling. While hard work is undeniably important, the Stoics understood that sustainability was just as vital. The famous saying from Emperor Augustus, "Fistina lente, make haste slowly," captures this perfectly. It's not about working nonstop until you burn out. True progress comes from balance. The Stoics believe that if you don't take care of yourself, eventually, the consequences will catch up with you. Arianna Huffington's wake-up call came when she collapsed from exhaustion during her time building the Huffington Post. She realized that though hard work had helped her succeed, it was also wearing her down to the point of physical collapse. This is a real danger, as we've seen with people like Elon Musk, who pushes himself so hard that his health and judgment are now deteriorating. We may look at these figures and think that their extreme hustle is the key to success, but the Stoics would remind us that a life built on imbalance and neglect isn't truly successful. As Seneca put it, the mind that is not given over to relaxation breaks just as the anvil breaks the hammer. We can't keep pushing ourselves beyond our limits without eventually paying the price. Sustainable progress comes when we learn to slow down, conserve our energy, and focus on what really matters. This isn't about abandoning hard work. It's about working smart and recognizing when our bodies and minds need rest. This kind of harmful advice, which disregards the real, lived experiences of people suffering from mental health challenges, shows a fundamental misunderstanding of human suffering. Some people equate Stoicism with being emotionally invulnerable, but this is a misunderstanding. Stoicism teaches us to manage our emotions, not to suppress or deny them. It doesn't call for emotional repression, but for the cultivation of inner peace, resilience, and rational responses to life's difficulties. The Stoics believed in acknowledging reality as it is, not pretending that everything is fine when it's not. Acknowledging pain, struggle, or mental health challenges is essential to addressing them. It's about responding to these difficulties with wisdom and courage, not by pretending they don't exist. The Stoics give us a clear guide for navigating through the bad advice that often floods our lives. They remind us to stay humble, to prioritize sustainable effort over mindless hustle, and to always remain open to learning. The ego is not the path to success. True wisdom comes from recognizing our limits, staying grounded in reality, and putting in the hard, mindful work that leads to lasting growth. When we separate the wheat from the chaff, we can live more intentionally and create a life aligned with our values, free from the noise of unhelpful advice. We've all heard people make light of struggles they don't fully understand, dismissing real pain with comments like "just toughen up" or "stop faking it." But those who speak like this often lack empathy, or worse, haven't faced challenges of their own. The idea that philosophy can solve all of life's issues, or that people struggling with mental health simply need to snap out of it, is not only misguided, it's harmful. True understanding comes when we listen, not judge. Reading novels, memoirs, or the personal experiences of others allows us to see through their eyes. It helps us understand what someone might be going through, especially when it comes to conditions like depression. When you hear someone describe the crushing weight of it, the last thing you do is question them. You listen, you empathize, and you offer support because, when it comes down to it, you could easily be in their shoes. This is one of the lessons we learn from figures like Marcus Aurelius. In his meditations, he reflects on his own suffering, not just from physical ailments but from emotional and mental struggles too. Marcus wasn't immune to life's difficulties. He had plenty of reasons to despair, yet he still found a way to get out of bed and face the day. His internal debate about doing so, in Book 5 of Meditations, shows just how deeply he struggled, yet he found ways to keep going. We all face moments when life feels unbearable, but that doesn't mean we should dismiss those who are hurting. Sure, there are basic practices we can all adopt to take better care of ourselves, routines that many people overlook. But let's not forget that some people are going through things that are far beyond our comprehension. It's essential that we remain sensitive to that. Susan Cain's book Bittersweet introduces the idea of melancholy as a source of depth and even greatness. Some of the most impactful people in history, like Abraham Lincoln, lived with profound sadness. Lincoln struggled with depression to the point where his friends were worried he might harm himself. But despite the deep pain, he pushed through. His friends didn't call him weak or pretend his pain wasn't real. They supported him, helping him navigate through the darkness. That's what real support looks like. We need to remember that struggles, especially mental health struggles, are complex, and it's never as simple as just getting over it. We need empathy. When people open up about their struggles, whether with depression or anything else, we need to be there for them, not belittle them, not invalidate their feelings. Stoicism at its core isn't about harsh judgment of others or pushing people to just deal with it. It's about understanding and self-discipline. It's about seeing the bigger picture, appreciating what others are going through, and applying that same compassion to ourselves. Stoic wisdom encourages us to be patient, to try not to be easily offended, and to treat others with kindness, especially when they're struggling. It's not about being tough or pretending nothing affects us. It's about emotional resilience and a willingness to understand others. Take, for example, the idea of emotional intelligence. Stoicism teaches us that we should seek to understand before seeking to be understood. It's about reflecting on our actions and their impact on others. This doesn't mean we never challenge people or push back against ideas, but we should do so in ways that are constructive, not hurtful. Unfortunately, there's a dangerous trend of using social platforms and public statements to tear people down rather than uplift them. Individuals who lash out or deliberately offend others in the name of being real or being tough are missing the mark. It's one thing to express your truth, but it's another to be cruel or dismissive just for the sake of it. That's not what Stoicism is about. In fact, Stoics understood the importance of kindness, not just to others but to themselves as well. It's about maintaining respect for others, regardless of their background or struggles. As Bezos's grandfather wisely told him, it's easier to be clever than it is to be kind. Sometimes the truth can be delivered without causing harm. It's all in the approach. In this age of anti-woke culture and online polarization, we must remember that being clever or provocative doesn't make you a better person. The real strength lies in understanding, kindness, and empathy. Stoicism encourages us to be resilient, not by harshly judging others, but by choosing to respond with wisdom and compassion, both to ourselves and to those around us. On a side note, This idea of self-discipline extends into everyday life, like how we take care of our bodies. It's one thing to hustle and push ourselves, but it's another to truly optimize for well-being. Sleep is a prime example. We may think it's enough to just sleep whenever, but if we care about our mental and physical health, we have to be intentional about our rest, whether it's the right mattress or the right sleep environment. Finally, while Stoicism encourages us to focus on our own growth and self-mastery, it's important to recognize that some challenges require more than self-discipline. Mental health conditions like depression and PTSD sometimes need more than philosophical reflection. They may require medical intervention. And while some may argue that psychedelics offer a way out, it's crucial that we approach these topics with caution. What's important is that we respect the boundaries between personal growth and professional care. After all, unearned wisdom can be as dangerous as unregulated treatments. In the end, true strength comes not from avoiding hardship, but from facing it with a heart full of empathy and a mind rooted in wisdom. Let's remember that kindness to ourselves and others is the ultimate form of resilience. I recently revisited the electric Kool-Aid acid test, and I couldn't help but notice how similar the behavior and atmosphere of those people were to the scenes we now see at events like Burning Man. The absurdity, the theatrics, the almost unshakable certainty some of them had, it's all strikingly familiar. While there are certainly some serious people doing meaningful work in these circles, there are also a lot of voices that shouldn't be taken seriously. And then there's that gray area in between, where things quickly get muddled. Joan Didion, in her commencement speech at UC Riverside, once said, "Living in the world takes work." She emphasized that we need to strip away illusions, to examine what we see with clear eyes, and to shed the things that blind us. But she didn't mean that you could just take a pill or jump into some trendy experience and expect to arrive at wisdom. True wisdom takes time. It's earned. It's the result of years of introspection, reading, self-examination, and learning, not a weekend retreat where people expect instant transformation. This idea of unearned wisdom is crucial. There's a real danger in thinking that deep, life-changing insights can be gained quickly and easily. A lot of the things people learn, while under the influence of psychedelics, are interesting, sure, but they're often just very basic truths that have already been written about in almost every religious or philosophical text throughout history. The desire to shortcut this process, to gain insights instantly and effortlessly, is ultimately misguided. Look, if psychedelics work for you, then great. I'm not telling you to avoid them. But if you believe that there's a magic pill or a shortcut that's going to clear up all your confusion and solve all your problems, you're probably fooling yourself. History shows that most of these miracle cures never age well. The idea that there's a magical answer, some single event or experience that will make everything clear and perfect, is seductive, but it rarely lives up to expectations. And if these psychedelics are so transformative, why do people feel the need to do them over and over again? Why do they become so desperate to convert others to their experiences? It's a bit puzzling when you think about it. Then there's the advice that's so often dished out to young people. Follow your passion. It's one of the most well-meaning, yet cliché pieces of advice. But what if it's not the best advice? The Stoics would probably argue that being passionate about something can sometimes be dangerous. In Ego is the Enemy, I discuss how some of history's most catastrophic blunders were the result of passionate people being blinded to obvious dangers. Take Christopher McCandless, for example. His passion for going into the wild ultimately led to his undoing because he ignored the practical realities of preparation. Even the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, when asked to describe his legendary coach John Wooden, said in one word, dispassionate. Now, we often think of great coaches as being those who get the team hyped up, but the best coaches actually help us find clarity. They channel our energy, not just our passion. Passion can be an unrefined, impulsive fuel, great for getting us excited, but terrible at leading us to thoughtful, measured action. I think it's better to focus on what you're good at, rather than just chasing after what you're passionate about. There's a big difference. True fulfillment and success come from aligning your skills with what the world needs and what excites you. Passion is important, sure, but if you're only passionate about something for yourself, it can easily turn inward and become self-serving. Take writing, for instance. I love writing about Stoicism. But if I were the only person interested in it, that would be a poor career decision. You need to find that sweet spot where what you're good at overlaps with what the world needs. Without that intersection, passion alone won't carry you far. I want to hire people who are competent, emotionally mature, and rational, not necessarily those who are the most passionate. Passion often clouds judgment, leading people to make decisions that are more about fulfilling their own desires than contributing meaningfully to a team or a project. As Nietzsche said, great passions are maladies without hope. We can look at history and see how many passionate people, think Napoleon or even George W. Bush, dragged others into disaster because they couldn't see the obvious. Now, I'm not saying that passion is inherently bad. Of course, you should care about what you're doing, but you should care more about what it does for others than for yourself. Passion, when unchecked, becomes self-centered. It's about creating something meaningful and contributing to the greater good, not just indulging in your own feelings of excitement. And here's another point: the advice about not having a morning routine. There's been a counter-movement recently that says, don't box yourself in with routines. But that's just as misguided. Having a morning routine isn't a rigid, one-size-fits-all schedule. It's about having a structure to set yourself up for success. William James once said that nothing is harder than constantly making decisions throughout the day. A morning routine removes that decision fatigue. It gives you a framework for starting your day with intention, focus, and discipline. The choreographer Twyla Tharp talked about how her day doesn't start in the studio. It starts with the first step of her morning routine. Getting up, making coffee, getting into the cab. These small actions set the tone for everything that follows. A disciplined morning routine is like winning the day right from the start. If I wake up, hit snooze, and dive straight into my phone, I'm already starting my day with procrastination. But if I wake up, get up promptly, and take a moment to reflect, I'm already ahead of the game. I've won the morning, and the rest of the day tends to follow suit. The Stoics were big believers in the power of habit. Every action you take reinforces who you are and what you're becoming. By starting your day intentionally, you send a message about what kind of day you're going to have. As Marcus Aurelius says in Meditations, when you wake up and feel that resistance to getting out of bed, you remind yourself that you were born to work, to contribute to the world. The resistance is always there, trying to pull you back into comfort, but it's your choice whether to give in or push through. So, don't be fooled into thinking you can just wing it. Establish a morning routine and turn yourself over to it. It'll be a game changer for your productivity, discipline, and mental clarity.